Hello and welcome to Project 5P. I am out here getting ready to distribute food to the homeless and those in need, and it brought to my attention and made me think that this was probably a good time to remind you before this next video to be sure that you store nutrient-dense, high-quality foods in addition to your rice, wheat, beans, and corn. I'm talking about fruits and vegetables with long-term shelf life. The best way to do that, Storehouse freeze-dried foods. You can find them at storehousefdfoods.com. Fruits and vegetables with a 25-year shelf life. I mean, there's all kinds of different ones. I only have so much here because we're getting ready to distribute to the homeless and those in need. And 10% of all proceeds from Storehouse goes towards feeding those in need. So if you want or need, which you should, have some high quality, nutrient dense fruits and vegetables for your long-term storage needs, go to storehousefdfoods.com. These bags are big, and what they're filled with, I mean, they're big bags. They're filled to the top, and they're filled with big, hearty chunks of fruit. This isn't the little slivers of withered fruit that you get in a tiny 1-ounce bag at the supermarket. I mean, these bags are good sized bags, and they're filled to the top, and they're filled with good hearty chunks of food. They're lightweight, great for camping, hiking, hunting, picnics. I mean, just everyday snacks. You can fit a lot of this in a tote or a bin for bug out plans because it's so light. You can transport this stuff super easy. The bags themselves are very high quality, thick Mylar, triple sealed, nitrogen flushed, plus an oxygen absorber to maximize shelf life. This stuff, again, will last 25 years, an absolute necessity, in my opinion, as a strength and conditioning coach and licensed sports nutritionist. I can't tell you how important enough it is for your long-term storage needs to have some high-quality, nutrient-dense foods, fruits and vegetables. Canned stuff is not going to last 25 years. Freeze-dried from Storehouse will. Again, storehousefdfoods.com. They even have things like sweets, ice cream, things like that. But what I'm recommending most is the fruits and vegetables. Get you some for your long-term storage needs. And again, 10% of sales goes towards feeding those in need, the homeless and poverty-stricken people. So go get you some, add it to your long-term storage. Storehousefdfoods.com. I'll put a link in the description. And now let's get to the video about bagging and bucketing dried goods for long-term storage. Hello and welcome to Project 5P. I'm going to be going over some bagging and bucketing of dried goods today for long-term storage. Got my buckets ready, as you already saw. Mylar bags. This time around I'm using Ziploc resealable Mylar bags, and I'll show you some of the advantages to that. I don't always like using them, but there are some advantages. I'll talk about that a little bit more. So we got 175 pounds of pinto beans, 25 pounds of white rice, 25 pounds of organic brown sugar, 25 pounds of salt, 75 pounds of organic oats, and about maybe 100 so pounds of organic pasta varieties, spaghetti and various pastas. So yeah, that's the task for today. And right now I'm going to fill the buckets first, or fill the bags one step at a time, show you that, and then walk you through the rest of the process. The oats are not as dense. So 125-pound bag, I split up into 2 buckets. Okay, so the pasta and spaghetti I do a little bit differently. I used to do it the same way. Unpackage it, put it all in the Mylar bag, and go through the process as normal. What I've been doing lately, and I think I first saw this, I don't remember, forgive me for not giving you credit. I believe it was Provident Preppers that suggested just tearing a small hole in the existing packaging so that the oxygen absorber can work when that time comes, or if you vacuum seal or whatever, so you can still get into the package and get that air out. I've been trying that lately. I tapped into some buckets that I had done that to about 2 years ago, went back in to check if it was a legit way of doing it, and they were still tight, vacuum sealed. Everything worked great. Everything tasted great. So I'm going to continue to do that for this particular batch. I'll show you how that works. So I'm going to take these pasta bags. I'm going to tear it open just slightly, just enough for oxygen to be able to escape when the time comes. And then I'm going to put this entire package down into the bucket, into the Mylar, into the bucket, and I'm going to stack them and pack this bucket as tight as I can get it. Took a few tries to situate these in different configurations to find out which configuration I can get the most bags into the bucket, but over time I kind of figured it out, so I'm going to do that next. And I'm just making sure that I situated this good enough to where I'm going to be able to get a lid on this bucket. Looks like it is. All right, moving on to the next one. Now, just to show the difference, I'm going to do this next bucket just with the pasta directly into the Mylar bag. So I'm going to empty each one of these packages into the Mylar bag. These are various different kinds, various different shapes, I should say, of the pasta, but that doesn't matter to us. It's just doesn't matter if they're mixed up. So you can see down in there, bucket is about as full as I want to make it. I'm going to do one more like that. So what I'll do next is I'll go around to each bucket and I'm going to pull this bag out of the bucket a little bit, give it a shimmy, check the bottom. As you can see right now, this is why. Because when you put these Mylar bags into the bucket, these corners can fold in, and there's a lot of excess bag down here that's not getting used. Okay, an alternative would have been to fill the Mylar bag first and then put it into the bucket. What you can do though is I shake this so that I can try to fill as much of those crevices as possible, and then I just have to fold it and shimmy it back down into the bucket, just like that, so that there's not a lot of excess bag at the bottom where it's just air and not product. Because when you're trying to fit as much product into these buckets and Mylar bags as possible, I don't want that wasted space. Plus, I don't want pockets of air that are gonna make it more difficult for the oxygen absorber to get everything out of there. These Mylar bags I've had great success with, this particular company. I've had lots of food go bad in the past from Mylar bags with very weak seams, to where it took me a while to figure out what was happening, but air was getting in to the Mylar bags, even after being sealed, after heat shrink, everything going into the bags later, going into the buckets later to retrieve food. Notice that they're not sealed anymore. There's air in them. The seal has gone bad, and it took me a while to figure out what was going on until I figured it out. It was this process of shaking the bag to get that product to settle was splitting the seams on the bottom of the bag, because they were cheap garbage bags. These particular bags, I'm not going to say the brand just yet, because I'm still testing them out just to make positively sure before I suggest them. I'll update the description of the video if and when that happens, when I feel comfortable actually promoting them and saying that they're excellent. But so far, much better than previous brands that I've used that have, these seams have split with under the weight when I go to shimmy that weight, and that jiggling or that jolting down to the bottom of that settling would open them right up. So I'm gonna do that. I'll probably time lapse this or go to the next scene where that process is done. Okay, my next step is I'm gonna take this hair straightener, go around to every bag and seal it up about almost all the way closed. I'm gonna leave about, 3 or 4 inches open at the corner of the bag to drop in the oxygen absorber at the next step. But I want this mostly sealed to start off with before I hit that step, because once I do, when you're doing this many buckets anyway, once I start dropping in oxygen absorbers, I don't want to be spending minutes on each bag going around, because in that while I'm doing that, these oxygen absorbers are obviously absorbing ambient oxygen from the air. I want them to be sealed in the bag and only absorb the oxygen within the bag. So I want to be quicker about it. So I'm going to get a head start by pre-sealing most of these bags almost all the way. Leaving about that much so I can drop in an oxygen absorber quickly. Okay, once I have those bags the majority of the way sealed up, my next step is take out my trusted Sharpie, and I mark each bag with the product name, the date, and the quantity. So, for example, organic spaghetti, 25 pounds, July 17th, 2023. I do that to both sides of the Mylar bag. I also label the outside of the bucket, but I'll do that later. Some people use different color buckets. Some people only label the bucket. I don't like that because I use masking tape to label the outside of the bucket. I don't like writing on the bucket itself, because as these buckets rotate, the bucket might be used for something else the next time around. So I use masking tape, but who knows? Moisture in the air, humidity, a flood, just moving buckets around, those labels can come off very easily. So I like to label the inner bag as well, both sides of the bag. And it's important, obviously, especially when you're doing multiple products like I am today, to do so before you seal it up so that you know what's inside. I can still peek inside and know what I'm doing. Ask me how I know. I've made that mistake before. If you're doing just buckets and buckets of rice only, maybe not, obviously not as important, but label it before sealing it up so that you know exactly what's in there. Okay, bags are labeled, so next step is to seal these bad boys up. I'm using 2000 cc oxygen absorbers. I'll only do as many bags at a given time as I have to, because again, I want to move quickly and I don't want these to be exposed to the air any longer than they need to be. So I believe this is a 10 pack, so I'll do 10 buckets at a time. I'll cut this open, go around, drop them in each bucket, seal the bucket up with the Ziploc first, squeeze as much air as I can out, and zip it with the Ziploc first. That's one of the advantages of the Ziploc bags, is that especially when you're doing it by yourself, I can go around and zip them up, and you know, while I'm doing the rest of the bags, at least I got some sort of seal going on there. For things like the pasta or things with a lot of air in the bag, I might use 2 oxygen absorbers, which a lot of people would say is overkill, that 1 would be plenty. But with the cost of food, I mean, the cost of using an extra oxygen absorber, I don't care if it's overkill. It might not be needed, but for the pennies that it costs for an oxygen absorber to save that amount of food is well worth it to me. I also overkill and use a vacuum to suck out the air out of the corner of the bag. I use that little area that I left open in the corner of the bag to drop the oxygen absorber in. Once that's in, and I seal these up with the Ziploc, go around, do that. Then I go back to the beginning and I'll actually heat seal them, sucking out the air first. That's another thing that's good about these Ziploc bags, is that I can, with one person, I can suck this air out, zip it up myself, and then heat seal it. I'm going to show one example of how I do that right now. I'll use the salt as an example. Since I'm not putting oxygen absorber in the salt, I don't got to worry about being quick with that. I'm just going to show you just the method I use for using the vacuum to suck out the air and heat seal the Mylar bag. Overkill, again, maybe so, but well worth it when it takes seconds. It's worth the time, in my opinion. I've already cleaned and sanitized the tip of this vacuum, so get after it. So I will put this vacuum tip in here. I'm going to use the Ziploc to go all the way up against that to where I'm not letting any air in, and that this has free reign, that there's no air seeping through as much as possible, to get a good seal around this attachment. As you can see, that sucks that air all the way down. That's tight. And again, salt's an easy one because technically I don't need an oxygen absorber in there, and I could have left it in its original packaging and it would still last practically forever. So this one's easy. It's not too strict, but as you saw, I'm able to keep the pressure on the hose attachment and seal it right as I pull it out. I can seal it. That's an advantage to the Ziploc portion. And once it's sealed, once it's closed like that with the Ziploc, I can go back and heat seal it. Fold that down into the bucket, put the lid on, masking tape on the bucket, label it, done. So next I'll show the same process, but with using the oxygen absorbers. Okay, I've gone around and dropped all those in, sealed the bag just with Ziploc. Now I'm gonna go back, crack the corner, now that oxygen absorber doesn't need to work nearly as hard. A lot of the air is already sucked out. Move on right to the next one. Show you another method that I use here sometimes. Putting the vacuum nozzle in. And then what I'm going to do once this is on, you won't be able to hear me talk, so I'm going to say it now. I will heat seal all the way up to this nozzle here. Then I'll take the hair straightener and I'll clamp here over the vacuum nozzle, and as I'm pulling it out, I will clamp down, so there's no chance of air getting in that transition period. I like that method a lot better. It seems to work better than the, just trying to seal the Ziploc as I pull out the hose. So there you have it, several hundred pounds of food packaged for long-term storage, piece of cake. Even easier if you had more than one person, another set of hands would be helpful in some of those situations, as you can see, but you can see that you can do it yourself also. One person, one man job can do it, take a little bit longer, but it is not impossible. So you do the same, get some food storage, get after it.